Now, what happens when the World Health Organisations, the United Nations through the UNICEF group, and the scientific journal The Lancet get together to consider the future for the world's children in various countries around the globe? Well, they'd bag Australia over climate change, of course, and they'd try to send our kids into a spiral of depression by telling them the world is doomed, wouldn't they? Now, the reality is, as we know, but so many in the media and politics seem to want to ignore, that there's never been a better time to be a child on this planet. Life expectancy has never been as high, education has never been as comprehensive, health standards have never been higher, and rates of poverty globally have never been lower. There's problems, of course, but those are the bare facts. And in this WHO, UNICEF and Lancet report, it says, despite dramatic improvements in survival, nutrition and education over recent decades, today's children face an uncertain future. Climate change, ecological degradation, migrating populations, conflict, pervasive inequalities and predatory commercial practices threaten the health and future of every child in the world, of children in every country in the world. So they admit the dramatic improvements just in passing, but then they turn to the alleged threats that are happily aligned to the causes of the left: migration, inequality and predatory commercial practices, which is actually, I think, junk food advertising and the like. You've got to shake your head at this stuff, don't you? The report goes on, and it says in a further excerpt that children and young people are full of energy, ideas and hope for the future. They're also angry at the state of the world. Worldwide, school children and young people are protesting about environmental threats from fossil fuel economies. So again, they say kids are full of ideas and hope. Then they try to crush them with a cataclysmic climate message. This stuff is really cynical and hyper-political, and they're using kids like pawns in an ideological battle. And guess what? Of course, it's fake news, because worldwide, kids are not protesting against fossil fuel economies. Worldwide, the vast majority of kids are ignoring politics and protests, and they're getting on with their life. They're schooling, they're playing, and they're doing it all with their hope and their abundant energy. And they're also doing it in developed and developing nations, mainly because of the prosperity being brought about by cheap, reliable energy linked to those fossil fuel economies. This report is activism, not analysis. Australian academics, surprise, surprise, they're involved too, running down our country and claiming that our kids need a sugar tax and bans on advertising and all sorts of other big government interventions. They put out some lists with this report, and it ranks Australia 20th overall as a nation in which kids can flourish, mainly behind European nations plus Korea and Singapore. Good nations all. But I think if you studied the migration patterns between those top 20 countries, people voting with their feet, Australia would be much higher up that ladder. And when it comes to the buzzword of sustainability, they put Australia in the bottom 10 of countries, ranked 174th in the world, just above Saudi Arabia. This is all based on carbon footprints, of course. But I ask again, get people to vote on environmental issues with their feet, and you could flip that table on its head. This is more of the same. The UN, academics, activists, running down Western liberal democracies, running down market economies, running down progress, denying the facts of human health and prosperity, and preaching big government and redistribution of wealth. These people would undermine all the gains of civilization if we gave them the reins of power for just a few years. And sadly, in reports like this, they use our kids to make their arguments, and they depress our kids with fact-free and irrational preaching of doom and gloom.